What's happening, everybody? On today's show, some key takeaways from Auburn's spring game and Vanderbilt spring game from Saturday, some SEC recruiting nuggets around the conference, and some SEC basketball updates on guys transferring and going pro. And an Aggie makes some noise at Augusta. We'll talk all about it. Locked on SEC starts right now.
Are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. A reminder to skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/college60 and use code college60 for 60% off plus free shipping. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. Well, let's jump into it. Let's start with some takeaways from Auburn's spring game over the weekend. And first off, we weren't even sure if we were going to get this game in. The weather was just so miserable all weekend in Auburn, especially on Saturday. Pouring rain, cold weather. And if you were watching this one on the SEC Network Plus, even Chris Doering's microphone down on the field got all crackly because of the wet conditions. It was just water everywhere. The fans in the stands looked miserable. Everybody wearing ponchos. Hugh Freeze looked miserable, so much to the point that they just eliminated the third quarter altogether. They were playing this one. They went from the second quarter, and Hugh Freeze said, "Out of hell with it. Let's just skip right to the fourth quarter to shorten this thing up and get everybody out of here," because, you know, sickness is something that starts to play into it. You're cold. It's rainy. Everybody's soaking wet. But this A-Day was a little limited in what we could take away. But what stood out to me, all in all, we'll start with the quarterbacks. And I just still feel like Auburn's quarterbacks have a long way to go. Robby Ashford, there's no doubt about it. We know about his running ability. He showed that off on Saturday. He was the Lionel James offensive MVP as voted on by the media. It was given to Robby Ashford. He rushed for 38 yards and a touchdown on 6 carries. He completed the longest pass of the day, a strike to Tavarish Dawson for 39 yards. It was just one of only 5 passes completed by the quarterbacks in the rain on Saturday. But it was a beautiful pass. It was a strike down the seam in the rain, a huge gain. And again, I wish we could have seen drier conditions. I would have liked to have seen more of this Hugh Freeze / Philip Montgomery up-tempo offense, and would have liked to see more of the passing attack. So if you're a fan, I don't know how much you could take away from the quarterbacks. Hugh Freeze said after the game, "I thought Robby Ashford got better. I think he's trying to change some of the things that may have caused me concern about him being the quarterback leader, whether it be body language or ball security or just your demeanor in general, the way you talk to your teammates." I don't know that anybody's really changed him like I did this spring with that. Holden Geriner and TJ Finley, they saw plenty of reps on Saturday and throughout the spring as they compete for that starting job. Finley, who's not considered the most fleetest of foot, he showed off his running ability a couple times in this one. Big body guy. You're waiting for that light to come on with TJ Finley. Like, man, let's throw some darts. Let's improve as a passer. We saw him do it in high school. Saw it even as, starting a couple games as a true freshman at LSU. I just don't know what happened to TJ Finley, why he hasn't developed more along the way. I still think he's in the hunt here, but certainly looks like Robby Ashford is in the driver's seat. He just Ashford looked the most comfortable of the group, running the offense, reading the defense, running zone reads. I did like some of the up-tempo stuff we saw too. And we saw, like we said, Ashford score that touchdown running it in. What we saw from the wide receivers was just a couple balls hitting guys in the hands, unable to pull them in. And obviously the rain was a factor. But I just don't know if there's a whole lot we can take away from the passing game from Saturday. Landon King had a nice catch at one point. Nick Mardner, the transfer, you can see his size at 6'6". He looks the part, but he has got to back it up. There's been talk of him just being inconsistent throughout this spring. So you want to see him get better. Let's talk about what I did like in this game, and that was the running backs. Look, having Cadillac back to coach this bunch is going to pay dividends, in my opinion. First off, Jarquez Hunter, I think he's fine as a starter. We know how good he can be catching the ball out of the backfield. I think he's fine to take some carries, to start games and run between the tackles. But I just feel like Jarquez Hunter is a complimentary back. I don't feel like he's a bell cow, in my opinion. And I like what we saw to the other guys, Damari Alston, Brian Battie, and the former walk-on Sean Jackson. By the way, Freeze was very complimentary of Alston after this game. Had some really good runs early in this one. But me, I just like Sean Jackson, man. Big number 44. He's like a bulldozer sometimes. He's been mostly a special teams guy. I'm excited to see if he gets a real chance. His first run in the game was for 10 yards, second carry for 9 yards. I had him at 4 carries for 37 yards in his first couple touches in this game. I just thought he was very impressive. So, again, maybe he's the goal line back. Maybe when they get in there, go punch it in with Sean Jackson. And maybe the fact that it was just wet, sloppy playing conditions, this game favored, his play. And maybe that's why he looked so good. But, again, I just liked what I saw from Sean Jackson and Damari Alston. And Battie's got some breakaway speed as well. So, overall, I think the Auburn run game is going to be just fine. I like all the pieces they have there. Got to figure out that passing game, though. One interesting component, Hugh Freeze completely let Philip Montgomery run the offense. So Hugh Freeze was more in that CEO-type role, overseeing everything. So that was, just something interesting that we'll watch as we get into the fall months. Defensively, a lot of guys stood out to me. Linebacker Hayden Bryce had a sack on Holden Gariner on a third down. Keldrick Falk looked really good, the freshman linebacker. Marquise Gilbert had a big hit at safety. Linebacker Robert Woodyard blew up a screen play. That was good. Caleb Wooden looked solid. Jake Levant led the way with 6 tackles and a sack. In the secondary, DJ James just looks really good, man. He had 4 tackles. He was voted the Mark Dormant, the defensive MVP of the game. Kyan Lee, too, the cornerback, the freshman. He looks like he's going to play a big factor this year as a freshman. He's only 17 years old. And I think they say he's going to be 17 when the season starts. So just a name to keep an eye on there. Kyan Lee, along with DJ James. I like the secondary for Auburn. And up front, Jeffrey Mba and Nasili Kite, or Kite, as they were saying on the broadcast. I think both those guys up front are going to be solid. So I actually like Auburn's defense. I like their run game. If they could just figure out this quarterback thing, I think they're going to be solid. And look, the field was just a mess. And Alex McPherson drilled a 33-yarder to complete the comeback from the offense and end Saturday's 8A game, a 24-24 tie. Remember last week we said the winning team was going to get steaks, the losing team was going to get hot dogs. Well, with the tie, everybody won. But to me, the biggest takeaway from this, and check out this quote from Hugh Freeze after the game. He was asked if Auburn will go after a transfer quarterback in May. He said, quote, "The transfer portal opens soon, and we're open to any position that will help our team as long as they fit our culture, and that includes our quarterback room." So we talked to our guy, Zach Blackerby, last week, host of Locked on Auburn. He says he thinks, or he thought as of last week, that Auburn's future quarterback or quarterback for this upcoming season is not on the roster right now. Who will Auburn go get? Is there a starter or somebody out there who's maybe going to lose their starting job at their current school, but good enough to come in and start for Auburn and run this offense? We will see. But just one of the more interesting components to watch with the Auburn Tigers. I like so much of what they've got, but man, if they could just figure out that quarterback spot, if Robby Ashford would step up, grab the bull by the horns and say, "I'm the guy. Nobody's coming in here to take this job from me." And maybe that's what they need. Maybe they need to bring in a transfer who comes in, and maybe that guy doesn't even win the job, but he pushes Ashford to step up, or he pushes Finley, something like that. But that's where we are with Auburn. And again, just my opinion. Those are my takeaways from what I saw on the 8A spring game on Saturday. All right, thank you guys for making Locked on SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, I'll give you some of my quick takeaways from Vandy spring game, and we'll run through some recruiting news around the conference as well. But first, this episode is presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. You can check out some of the great odds out there. Will Aaron Judge continue to keep hitting home runs? Will there be a pitcher to go over on the strikeout total? All that is up there for you. So don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Roll along here, Locked On SEC, and we were talking all about Auburn Spring Game, and Vanderbilt had their spring game on Saturday evening. And you know what? If I'm going to be honest, it was actually a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than Auburn's. Well, because they actually ran more of their offense and threw the ball around because there wasn't any rain in Nashville. But nonetheless, it was fun to watch Auburn on Saturday. The Commodores scrimmaging for 4 quarters as the defense was really playing their butts off early on, forcing the offense on a lot of 3 and outs or just turning the ball over. The offense came out led by quarterback A.J. Swan, who was the guy last year, and had some nice moments. He opened the second half finding Richie Hoskins for a 17-yard touchdown. And A.J. Swan finished the day 9 of 16, 115 yards and a touchdown. I like what we saw from some of the other guys. Walter Taylor threw for 74 yards and a touchdown. And then our guy Ken Seals, who we had on the show a couple years back, of course, played a lot as a true freshman. He's still hanging around there. He threw for 70 yards and a score. But some of my takeaways from this one, Quincy Skinner looks to be a nice wide receiver to go alongside Will Shepard. Skinner had 2 catches for 63 yards and a 75-yard score that was called back. He had a little, I don't know if you'd call it taunting celebration as he was going in for the score. Referee threw a flag, called it back. Clark Lee called it a teaching moment. But to me, the stars of the day, one of the running backs for Vanderbilt, Chase Gillespie had 15 carries for 93 yards, and Sedrick Alexander, 7 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. I just like how this kid runs. He's a freshman early enrollee for Vanderbilt, but he just looks like he is going to be a future stud. Keep an eye on number 36, Sedrick Alexander. Keep in mind, they lost Ray Davis to the portal. He's at Kentucky now. But I think with Gillespie and Alexander together, they are going to be fine running the football. Defensively, nice hit by safety De'Rickey Wright early on, and then he comes back later in the game with a big pick 6 to lead the defense. So De'Rickey Wright, a playmaker there in the secondary. Quarterback Walter Taylor, mentioned him. He connected on a 50-yard pass to Wilson Long. That was one of the big plays of the day. And number 33, Richie Hoskins, maybe a name to keep an eye on for Vandy at wide receiver. He's a lacrosse player who came to Vandy as a preferred walk-on. And, man, he made some plays throughout this game. There was a scary moment later in the game when A.J. Swan was limping around, came out of the game, looked to be okay. He was laughing with Clark Lee, but certainly a little bit of a scare there. You don't want a guy who's projected to be your starting quarterback getting hurt in the spring game. But overall, I just thought Vandy looked bigger up front, man. They that's been where they've kind of been lacking. They're just starting to look like they've got some more SEC size now with the way Clark Lee's been recruiting and hitting up the transfer portal the last year plus. Vandy's starting to look like a competitive team. That's something that they were not 2 years ago before Clark Lee got there. And I think we're going to see a better Vanderbilt team this year. Now, the schedule is easier in the first half for them. So I think 6-6 should absolutely be the expectation this year. When you talk about finishing the season last year with wins against Kentucky and, Florida, I mean, they've got a chance to make some noise here. I would say maybe even 7-5 if they get a win they're not supposed to next year. Could be a possibility. But as Clark Lee said, they want to just have a postseason period. They want to get to a bowl game. And so 6-6 is the goal. But Vanderbilt, they wrapped up the black and gold spring game Saturday. They're if you watch it on TV on the ESPN Network Plus, they were playing at the Vanderbilt Lacrosse and Soccer Complex. So a good job by everybody involved there to, paint a football field, make it look like a football field. And the black team topped the white team 37-30. Candace Story Lee said that they were having some doing some renovations and some work at the football stadium. That's why it was not played there. But kudos to everybody involved. Thought it looked good. Thought Vanderbilt looked pretty good. And again, I think we're getting to a point now where Vanderbilt's not going to be the joke anymore. Now, they're not going to win the SEC East. They're not going to be Georgia. They're not going to be, a big-time playmaker in that realm. But I do think Clark Lee's doing some things to take this program forward and get them back into viability where, 6-6 is in play and get to a bowl game and maybe go win it. Now, things are going to get a lot tougher next year when Oklahoma and Texas get into the SEC. Vanderbilt may have to slip back again, take another step backward, and somebody's got to be the doormat of the SEC still. But anyway, I like what we saw at Vanderbilt. So some positivity from that program here so far coming out of the spring. All right, let's get to a couple of recruiting nuggets across the SEC in this segment. We head over to Arkansas, where Sam Pittman's staff went into Mississippi for their latest commitment. Blue chip athlete Julius Pope announced Saturday he is committed to play for the Hogs. 24/7 Composite ranks him as a 4-star linebacker, the number 11 recruit from the state of Mississippi. Pope tagged Arkansas assistants Jimmy Smith, Marcus Woodson, and Travis Williams in his social media announcement. He is listed at 6 foot tall, 195 pounds, had offers from a number of other schools, and Pope now gives Arkansas 4 commits for their 2024 class. Over Tennessee, Josh Heupel making some news. They are hot on the recruiting trail over there at Tennessee. Gage Ginther from Fort Collins, Colorado, committed to the Volunteers over the weekend. 6'5", 287 pounds. He's rated a 3-star, the number 2 prospect out of Colorado, number 52 interior offensive lineman in the 2024 class. Had a ton of offers from different people, and that now gives Tennessee 8 commitments for their 2024 class. So, and some depth there on the O-line at Tennessee. We just talked about Vanderbilt. How about a win for Vandy for their class of 2025 as they picked up a commitment from running back Caden Knightwood over the weekend. He had offers from the likes of Colorado, Michigan State, USC, and Knighton listed at 6 foot tall, 190 pounds, and the number 3 recruit from the state of Oklahoma. So 4 stars. It's a big pickup for Vanderbilt. Again, it's for 2025, so we'll see if they hang on to him. But Caleb Knighton, sorry, I think I said Knightwood. Knighton. Another recruiting commit. This one, we're going to throw this one in because this is in the mix with Oklahoma. We got to start talking about Oklahoma and Texas commits for down the road because these are going to be SEC guys we're going to have to worry about. Michael Hawkins picked Oklahoma over the weekend. He had narrowed his options down to Oklahoma and TCU. It's a legacy commit for Oklahoma. His dad was a cornerback for the Sooners from 05 to 09. And Michael Hawkins, 6'2", 195 pounds. He's rated 4 stars, the number 19 quarterback for the class of 2025. So anyway, just a name to keep an eye on there. And then over back at Arkansas, KJ Jackson is a name to keep an eye on. He's a 4-star quarterback. Announced Friday he'll be sharing his decision, and big target there for Arkansas. So we'll see if they end up getting him. That would be interesting. Go from KJ Jefferson to KJ Jackson. And one more for you guys. It looks like Elias Williams, a 5-star recruit, one of the top prospects in the 2025 class. On Saturday, he has announced his commitment to Georgia. So big time get there. 5-star prospect, number 13 overall recruit in the country for 2025. And we'll see if he sticks with that commitment. But a big recruit that Georgia's tight ends coach was getting after. Also helped recruit Darnell Washington, who was a 5-star athlete in the 2020 class. So we'll see if Elias Williams ends up sticking with Georgia, but makes his announcement over the weekend. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll talk about the latest with SEC basketball guys, either declaring for the draft or hitting the transfer portal. That's coming up next. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. And before we get to some of our SEC hoops news, I wanted to give a tip of the cap to Sam Bennett finished off an incredible weekend over at Augusta National. He is a current Texas A&M golfer. He finished the week 2 under par, was the top amateur in the field, finished top 20, and became the first amateur to do so since 2005. Finished in a tie for 16th, shot 2 over in the final round, ended the tournament 10 strokes behind the winner, John Rahm, but entered the 4th round, had a score of 4 under through 54 holes. That was the second best score of all time at the Masters by an amateur. And he said he had a tournament coming up this week, the Aggie Invitational, I think they said, where you don't even get a caddy. You got to carry your own bag. So he said he hadn't decided if he was going to take part in that this week. But you got to think, NIL deals will be coming in lumps for Sam Bennett at Texas A&M. Congrats to the current Aggie on a fantastic showing at the Masters in Augusta over the weekend. All right, let's get to some SEC hoops news. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we head over to Arkansas as Tremont Mark, one of the biggest names in the transfer portal, former Houston standout. He narrowed his list down to 4 schools, and on Sunday, it was reported by On3 Sports, he is heading to play for Eric Musselman and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Just this season, Wichita State transfer Ricky Council was a big-time transfer for Arkansas, and Tremont Mark this past year played in 37 games for the Houston Cougars, averaged 10 points, 5 rebounds, close to 2 assists, and over a steal per game. Big-time defender, decent scorer, and that's a big, big pickup there for Eric Musselman's group. So congrats to the Arkansas Razorbacks. Tremont Mark going to play for them. Darian Ford was a 4-star member of Arkansas's recruiting class a year ago. He was the number 3 overall player from the state of Arkansas in his class. Played sparingly this past year, showed some flashes. On Sunday, he announced he is returning to Arkansas next season, appeared in 21 games, averaged just under 4 minutes per contest, scored a total of 15 points, had 10 rebounds, 8 assists total as a true freshman. But Darian Ford can have a chance to come back and see what he can do next year for the Razorbacks. Over Kentucky, Oscar Tshiebwe is entering the NBA draft. He announced the news late Friday afternoon, says he intends to maintain his college eligibility throughout the process, so it'll leave open the door to a possible return to Lexington. But he tweeted out, "As I continue down this path, I pray that I can continue to have the amazing love and support of Big Blue Nation. You will always be in my hearts and prayers." Tshiebwe, 2-time All-American at Kentucky, was named National Player of the Year and 2 years ago, and this past season averaged 16 points and just under 14 rebounds a game. He was a big-time playmaker, and we'll see. Has an opportunity to go through all the scouting tests and all that, and if he doesn't like where his draft stock is, maybe he comes back for one more year at Kentucky. Had a ton of NIL deals there in Lexington, so we'll see what happens there. Over at LSU, Adam Miller went on social media to announce his plans for next season. He said he will be transferring out of LSU. He played in 33 games for LSU this year, averaged 11.5 points per game. I thank the LSU basketball staff. Remember, he came in through the transfer portal from Illinois back in 2021 and tore his ACL, wanted to go play for Will Wade, who was the coach there. Stuck it out with Matt McMahon in year 1 there at LSU, but just inconsistent three-point shooting. He's supposed to be that big three-point shooter, and they didn't get that out of Adam Miller this year at LSU. So he's back into the transfer portal. We'll see where he ends up. Justice Hill, another one of the transfers that came in this past year at LSU, followed Matt McMahon from Murray State, played 2 seasons under McMahon at Murray State, and then played this year for LSU. He entered his name into the transfer portal. According to John Rothstein, he has committed to Loyola Marymount. So Justice Hill will go finish off his career at Loyola Marymount. Over at Alabama, Mark Sears was a nice piece for Alabama all year, started all 37 games on Saturday. He announced he will test the NBA draft waters, but will maintain his eligibility in the process, so could return. He said, Sears began his career at Ohio before transferring to play for Nate Oates, and nice player for Alabama last year. So we'll see what happens with Mark Sears, if he ends up going pro officially or pulls his name out and comes back. Auburn basketball, they landed a big-time pickup transfer adding former FIU guard transfer Denver Jones. So Denver Jones from Florida International, one of the top pure scorers in the transfer portal, according to reports. He had offers from LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, and others. And he will replace, presumably, Wendell Green, who declared for the draft just a week ago. And this leaves next season's potential guard lineup with KD Johnson, Trey Donaldson, four-star incomer Aiden Holloway, and Denver Jones. And Jones is 6'4", averaged 20 points for FIU last season, shot nearly 48% from the field. And we will see what Denver Jones does for Auburn basketball next year. He earned all Conference USA first-team honors, appeared in 59 total games. Will have 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. And a couple of SEC baseball notes before we get out of here. Ole Miss off to a rough start in SEC play, but Rebels coach Mike Bianco gave an update on their ace pitcher Hunter Elliott, who has been injured for the majority of the season. He said Elliott threw a bullpen on Monday and Thursday, was full speed, felt great. And he told the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, said that Hunter Elliott will throw another bullpen next week, throw to some hitters live prior to going to Starkville, and said could be back for that LSU series on April 21st. So we will see what happens there, but that would be huge if Hunter Elliott comes back. There were some people thought maybe he wouldn't be able to come back at all this season. So big news there for Ole Miss. And lastly, Tennessee. Man, they've just had a rough go of it. The Vols got a run rule victory in Game 3 in their series against Florida, make it 14-2 in the bottom of the 8th to finish the game. Griffin Merritt made it a walk-off with a 3-run homer, but they dropped the first 2 games of the series 6-1 and 9-3 to Florida, and they got after Florida starting pitcher Jack Caglianone. And man, it's just been a weird season in SEC baseball. This was one of those weekends, obviously, with the Easter weekend, had a lot of, or had Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. Nobody played on Sunday with Easter, and I like that the SEC did that, made that change a couple of years ago. But, man, it's just odd when you look at the baseball standings right now. In the East, that's where the cream of the crop is. You got Vandy leading the way at 11-1, South Carolina at 9-2, Kentucky and Florida both at 9-3. By the way, South Carolina and OSU, they split their series 1-1. Game 3, they just were not able to get in with all the rain. So in the West, you got Arkansas sitting there at 8-4, LSU at 7-4 because they were not able to get that third game in. And then behind them, everybody's sub 500 in the conference in the West. A&M's at 5-7, Bama 4-8, Auburn 4-8, Mississippi State 3-9, and Ole Miss bringing up the rear at 2-10. Just rough go. But Tennessee sitting there, the bottom half of the pack in the SEC East at 5-7. So just been weird. Kentucky's been the big surprise. South Carolina's been a bit of a surprise in the East. And Vanderbilt and Florida we thought would be good. We knew LSU and Arkansas were going to be good in the West. So it's one of those years in the SEC. Going to be fun to see who rises to the top here in these next couple of weeks as we continue on through SEC play. And there you have it. There's the latest news going on around the conference. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Now you can make your second listen. Check out the Locked On, well, whatever other Locked On podcasts you like. We got you covered with almost all the SEC schools. So whatever your favorite SEC school is, just search Locked On and that school name. Chances are you will find that podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.